Hello everyone and welcome to Harv's World for another beginner's tutorial, this time on sugar beets. We're going to learn how to plant sugar beets, we're going to learn how to harvest sugar beets, and we're going to find out what all of this equipment does that is under the sugar beets category in the shop. Sugar beets really aren't that much different from any other crop. You're going to prep your fields exactly the same way. The only trick to sugar beet is you need a planter and not a seeder, which I happen to have. I'm back on my farm from the Ravensport walkthrough for beginners. If you've walked through that video or that series of videos, you should be good to go for this. At least for the most part. You are going to need some bigger equipment. Sugar beets are nothing to be taken lightly, and I'll tell you why here in just a little bit. But I've got my horse planter all set up and ready to go. It's just a matter of selecting sugar beet as your seed type, making sure you're full of plenty of seed and fertilizer, and getting on with it. And I will show you just so you know, you want a planter, not a seeder, and I am using the Horsch Maestro right here. Now we can tell right here that this will plant the sugar beets because it's got the sugar beet symbol showing in the shop. Straightforward. Not any different than planting corn or sunflowers or anything like that. And again, all you have to do is run it down the field like so. That's all it takes to plant sugar beets. Now, if you haven't watched my Ravensport tutorial, but you're still wanting to learn about sugar beets, that's fine. You don't necessarily need the setup that I'm using. But sugar beets, at least getting them in the ground, is very straightforward. It's really about the harvesting. That's what we're going to be concerning ourselves with more than anything. So what I'm going to do is plant up this field, get it all set up and ready to go. I'm going to advance time until these sugar beets are ready to harvest. And then we'll go from there. Because it's, like I said, it's all about the harvesting. That's really where the tricky part comes in. Slightly tricky. So let me get this done. We'll jump forward a little bit and come back with some other equipment when it comes for... We'll come back with some other equipment for harvesting these sugar beets. Okay, this field is planted. I have advanced time and we have got some lovely sugar beets in the ground. Check those babies out. They are ready to be harvested. Now, something to keep in mind is these do not follow the same color scheme as ready to harvest, at least not to start. They're going to turn up as orange, and that means remove tops. And that means that we have to chop the green stuff off the top before we can pull these sugar beets out of the ground. Now, there's multiple ways to do this, and that's what we're going to get into right now, the equipment that we're going to need. Now, I've leased a slightly larger tractor than what we have on our beginning farm. It's going to help us out because we're going to need some extra power. Now, the first thing we're going to look at when we go into our vehicles, go to BEET technology. There are some really massive machines that will take care of this. And I'm actually going to grab one of these, the cheapest. I'm not going to buy it, I'm just going to lease it so we can see what it does. It's the Ropa Panther 2. It does manage sugar beets, obviously. It's in the BEET technology. If you've got a big field of beets, you definitely want one of these bad boys, or the biggest one you can find. So we're going to lease that up. Now, if we go into our tools and look at BEET technology, we're going to see a few things. Now, there are some headers here, and the BEET harvesters, the one that I just leased, does need a header. What the header does is it chops the green off that I was just telling you about so that the beets can be harvested. So we're going to go ahead and lease this header to go with our big self-propelled harvester. Now, do you need a massive self-propelled harvester? No. We have these first two options, the Grime FT300 and the Roodster 604. These will do the same thing, and you can attach these to a tractor. Now, they're going to be for much smaller jobs. If you have a small field of sugar beets, a small field of yeah, a small field of sugar beets, then this is probably the way you're going to go. And I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to show you all of these. So I'm going to lease one of each of these. So there we go. There's our big self-propelled sugar beet harvester. This is our tractor-mounted sugar beet harvester. And one thing that I have to tell you right now, if you've never done sugar beets before, start small. Very, very small. Like the smallest field you have, get a feel for them, because I mean the equipment is slightly different, sure, from what you're used to, harvesters and such. But one of the daunting things about sugar beets is the sheer vast quantity that you will get out of them. So I'm going to use the tractor mounted harvesters first. This is really what we would need for a field this size. And I'm just going to make sure that they are set up and ready to go. It looks like we are. Now, if you don't have a larger tractor, if you have some horsepower restrictions, one thing that you can do here is drop off your harvester. Now, the back portion pulls the sugar beets out of the ground and harvests them. The front portion is called a topper. And you can't run this topper without harvesting. So you can see I can just run this field very quickly, and I'm chopping the green off the top of these sugar beets. Now that means you're going over the field twice instead of just once, like you would expect. You know, you would run this and then you'd bring in the harvester portion of this. And let's fire that bad boy up. Looks like he's already lowered. Now I won't be topping as I come across here because I've clearly already topped. But you can see now that these are starting to come out of the ground. That rear portion is harvesting those sugar beets with no problem whatsoever. But if you'll also notice, I haven't gone very far and I've already got 1,000 liters in the tank. Yeah, and this tank only holds 6,000 liters. So you do the math. and we are going to find out exactly how many sugar beets come off this field. It shouldn't take too terribly long. I've got the equipment for it, no problem. So this is the tractor mounted version of the harvesting, and like I said, this is probably what you'd really want to start with on a small field like this, especially if you have limited funds. This is a much more cost effective way of harvesting sugar beets than what we would get from the very expensive self-propelled versions. Now, speaking of the self-propelled versions, I am going to just shut down right here. I will empty these into the trailer. But I've just jumped over to the big ropa. I'm going to go ahead and get it unfolded because I can. Now, just like any other harvester, you're going to want to pull up to this head and attach it like so. Man, isn't that a beast of a machine? Yes, yes it is. And just like any other harvester, you're just going to fire this bad boy up like so. Well, line it up, I guess I should say, first. So you fire that bad boy up, it's going to drop the head down, and now this is going to top and harvest all at once. So that front head is chopping all the green off, and we are harvesting sugar beets. That's really all there is to a sugar beet harvest. It's just learning what the equipment does, and this equipment, you know, it looks confusing because there's a lot going on with it. But it's not. It's really not that much different. Just sugar beets as a crop is is quite a bit different in that you have to chop the tops off and then harvest what's in the ground. So it's two separate functions. But that's all. Now the last thing I'm going to do is figure out what I'm doing here. I'm going to finish harvesting this field off, and we're going to find out exactly how many sugar beets we have. Okay, there's the last of these sugar beets coming off. Didn't take too terribly long, but this is a very small field. Now, the last thing I want to show you is that these harvesters are not much different than other harvesters. If you want to tip in, it's simply putting the pipe out like so. And I hope I'm not too close. Yeah, I'm going to bump that trailer. Keep in mind, super large trailers on these aren't gonna be your friend. But I would just pull up like that, and this is gonna pipe out right into the trailer. No problem. Same thing with the big harvester. It helps if you actually get in the big harvester and not in the truck. But I would just pipe out, go right into the trailer like so. And see, I was a little bit too close. But that's okay. We don't care. All we want to know is how many sugar beets do we have? Well, I can tell you, a lot. 75,722 liters of sugar beets off that little tiny field. Now, if you've harvested that field before, you're probably lucky to get 10,000 liters of anything else off of it, at least when it comes to standard crop. Now keep in mind, when you want to store sugar beets, there are multiple ways to do it. I have a multi-fruit silo that accepts sugar beets. Standard silos are not going to do the trick. In real life, they really just mound up sugar beets. I've seen this. I used to live close to a sugar factory that brought in a lot of sugar beets, and they had just mounds of sugar beets, probably 2 or 3 football fields long and maybe 50 feet high, just piled with sugar beets. Just one last quick check just to see if my calculations were correct. Yes, 75,721 liters off this field. Now keep in mind that when it comes to sugar beets, we actually have a really good price, $450. But compared to other crops, let's compare that to wheat. Wheat is over twice the price. But what you're not getting in price on sugar beets, you're making up for in volume. And it's up to you. Maybe you have another purpose for sugar beets. I don't know. But if you do, now you know how to do it. Now you know how to plant them. Now you know how to harvest them. And now you know how to store them. So, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. This is my tutorial on sugar beets. I hope it helps you out. If it did, please remember to hit the like button down below. Appreciate you coming along for the ride. And until next time, take care.